Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to systematically peel back the layers of the vaping industry's safe alternative myth. For years, a whole generation was sold a very specific narrative about vaping, right? One that promised all the pleasure with literally none of the traditional risks of smoking. But as we're seeing now, the evidence increasingly tells a completely different story. So today, we're strictly looking at the facts.
Okay, let's dive right into this by contrasting that bright, candy-like promise we were all sold against the stark, unfiltered reality of what's actually entering our bodies. The promise was incredibly simple. No tar, no smoke, no smell, just harmless, flavored clouds. It was completely framed as the ultimate safe choice. However, the reality we're dealing with today is vastly different. We're actually looking at a highly addictive practice involving unregulated chemicals and really profound systemic health risks that are just dangerous in entirely different and honestly, sometimes much less obvious ways. Section 1. The nicotine addiction engine. We have to start right at the core of the issue. If we strip away all the fun flavors, what we're left with is the exact engine that keeps users hooked. And it's a staggering fact that a single tiny vape pod frequently contains nicotine levels equal to or sometimes even higher than an entire pack of traditional cigarettes. I mean, think about that for a second. Nicotine is literally one of the most addictive substances on the planet. When someone picks up one of these sleek, modern vape devices, they probably assume they're consuming just a fraction of the nicotine found in a cigarette. But in reality, they might be taking down a whole pack's worth in a single sitting. And here's why that's so incredibly dangerous. The human brain doesn't actually finish developing until our mid-20s. Because of that, this massive dose of nicotine acts kind of like a Trojan horse, severely disrupting attention, learning, and impulse control. The younger a person is when they start, the more vulnerable their prefrontal cortex is to this disruption. It fundamentally rewires how the brain manages mood regulation. So actually, scratch the idea that this is just a bad habit. It's an active interference with human brain development during its absolutely most critical final stages. And I think this thought brilliantly illustrates how addiction actually works day to day. It doesn't always look dramatic. It's not always this huge breakdown. Instead, it sneaks up on you as a dependency you don't even notice until you actually try to stop. You might think, oh, I'm just taking a puff to calm down before a test, or I just need it to drift off to sleep. But that persistent craving, that subtle pull demanding just one more hit to function normally, that is the textbook definition of chemical dependency.
Section 2. Not just flavored water.
Let's see how this all builds into the physical act of vaping itself, because it relies on a very specific, heavily misunderstood mechanism. Vaping is constantly marketed to us as harmless flavored water vapor, but the exact scientific definition of what's coming out of that device is an aerosol. That's a heated chemical cocktail that was never tested for long-term inhalation. The word vapor implies steam, right? Like what comes out of a tea kettle. But an aerosol is an entirely different physical state. It's a dense mixture of microparticles, packing nicotine, complex flavoring agents, and a bunch of totally untested compounds directly into a breathable format. So the absolutely crucial point here is that just because a flavoring chemical is perfectly safe to eat, it behaves very, very differently and dangerously once it's heated, aerosolized, and pulled down into your airways. Our digestive system is incredibly robust. It's a tank designed to break down a massive variety of substances. Our lungs, on the other hand, are delicate, highly sensitive organs built solely for gas exchange. Taking a food-safe chemical, superheating it, and pulling it deep into lung tissue introduces completely unknown, wild variables into the human body. And the direct physical consequences of repeatedly inhaling this aerosol, they include severe airway irritation, chronic inflammation, and in documented cases, lung injuries serious enough to put people in the hospital. Researchers are continually linking the daily use of vapes to ongoing respiratory symptoms. We aren't just talking about a mild tickle-in-your-throat cough here. We're talking about structural, inflammatory damage to the delicate pathways that literally supply oxygen to your blood. Section 3. Heart, lungs, and mind. Now, we've peeled back the respiratory layer, but the hidden damage doesn't just stop at your lungs. It cascades systemically throughout the entire body. A growing body of research stacks up some frankly terrifying systemic impacts. It shows that nicotine doesn't just damage the heart and blood vessels, though it definitely does that, but it significantly distorts your mood and your sleep day to day. We're seeing way higher rates of anxiety and profound mood disturbances among regular users, particularly in teens and young adults. Nicotine fundamentally alters how you feel. So this product that gets sold as a relaxing, chill lifestyle choice is in reality a major catalyst for heightened cardiovascular risk and serious mental health friction. Section 4. The unregulated gateway trap. As we peel back to the darkest layers of this whole industry, we uncover how this habit actively sets a trap for your future. When you actually look at the data, a truly alarming pattern emerges. Teenagers who vape are several times more likely to go on to try traditional combustible cigarettes compared to those who never vaped at all. This completely shatters the illusion that vaping is merely a safer substitute. Instead of keeping people away from smoking, the data proves beyond a doubt that it is actively introducing a whole new demographic to it. And the profound tragedy here is that instead of being a harmless off-ramp from smoking, vaping has become a high-speed on-ramp right back to it. It familiarizes users with that hand-to-mouth action, it permanently cements the nicotine addiction in the brain, and it inevitably leads a huge chunk of users straight to the very combustible cigarettes they originally thought they were avoiding in the first place. Compounding this trap is a booming black market of unregulated, counterfeit devices where the label is basically a complete lie. This exposes users to dangerous, deadly contaminants they never, ever intended to inhale. Alongside the legal products, there is this massive shadow industry pushing incredibly cheap, mass-produced devices. And because there is literally zero oversight on these counterfeits, you absolutely cannot know what is actually inside that liquid chamber. You could be inhaling industrial chemicals or entirely undisclosed illicit substances. And the reason these dangerous, unregulated chemicals are wrapped up in bright packaging and yummy dessert flavors, it's a calculated, deliberate tactic to make them irresistible to young people. It's certainly no coincidence that a device delivering addictive industrial chemicals looks exactly like a high-tech flash drive and tastes like cotton candy. Health organizations globally have recognized that this sweet flavoring and generic, colorful packaging is specifically, intentionally designed to bypass the natural skepticism of younger consumers. Section 5. How to break free. Okay, we've seen the trap, and we've walked through the mechanics of the addiction, so now we absolutely must shift our focus to the solution and how to actually escape it. If you or someone you love is trying to quit, you need to talk to a doctor and use proven cessation programs. And please remember that needing multiple attempts is normal, human biology. It is not a personal failure. You do not have to fight a severe chemical dependency alone. Healthcare providers have specific resources designed precisely to combat nicotine addiction. Relapsing or struggling to quit on the first try is completely standard. Your brain chemistry has literally been altered, and resetting it takes time, patience, and for sure, professional support. I want to leave you with this provocative thought to consider the next time you see a brightly colored vape. If the label is a lie, who's truly in control of your health? We've explored the addiction engine, the unproven aerosols, the heart and lung risks, and the scary unregulated shadow markets. This explainer exists because the people closest to us are often the ones most convinced that vaping is no big deal. But armed with this understanding, you can now see the hidden reality. Thank you so much for joining me, and keep questioning what you're told.